Okay, Justice Lighthouse, Thursday Night Family Group. I want to start with reading this. This, I think, fits because what we're getting down to is resistance to change. The only reason we resist anything stems from this foundational belief, or maybe a lack of understanding of the seriousness of it. Right? Oh, you know, you got a cut on your arm, and everybody's telling you, you need to go to the emergency room, you need to go to the emergency room, and we're like, oh, it's not that big a deal, right? Because we don't recognize the seriousness of it. We don't really want to go through the whole process. We're thinking down the line, well, I'm going to have to miss work for a while. We don't want to do all that stuff, so we'll literally deny what's happening or the seriousness of what's happening. And that really ties into how we resist in recovery, and mostly in early recovery. But even, from here on out, it's just human nature. We're going to resist things. But recognizing the significance of it as it relates to our own recovery. And so instead of reading out of, we usually read something out of the Recovery Bible. I think the How It Works chapter in the AA Big Book really covers it. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. And don't worry, I'm not going to read them all. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. And that's the resistance. Well, I think I can find an easier, softer way. But we could not. So with all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power, and that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. And here are the steps that we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. And then that's where they lay out the 12 steps. Which that's what this is here in the black, recovery requirements, which is what comes out of this process of recovery. We don't actually do the steps, like technical step work here. We get way far beyond that. As you transition into the next phase of your life, you want to get an AA sponsor and work the 12 steps, that's good, but you will have already worked all of that stuff out. We just deal with it in a little bit different way. So let's start with the definition of change. The definition of change is to make or become different. Okay, that seems simple enough. We've spent a lifetime trying to make our situations different. What we haven't spent enough time on, certainly not thorough time like the Big Book talks about, is we haven't spent any time or much time changing ourselves. Right? We have viewed the world from our position of everything's external. People, places, things, and situations. This thing isn't going my way. I wish this was different. if only I could have that thing, if only this other thing would work out, and we're very situationally oriented in our thinking and hence our behavior. Recovery tends to be really the very first time that most of us even become aware of this idea. Oh, I need to change me? What? No, you don't understand. I just need my ex-wife to get off my back, and I need my mom to finally pay that bill that she's been resisting me on, and people, places, things, and situations. So even though you may understand it on an intellectual level, learning how to embrace it, and this is why I like to do a lot of definitions, because it's easy for us to just reject a lot of words that we don't really understand. They just sound bad. Oh no, I don't have any problem changing. I'm always eager to make changes. Well, when you look at the definition, to make or become different, we're still the same person we've been for so many years. And all this stuff, and you guys already know this. All this stuff begins at a very young age, and the way we perceive ourselves, as we relate to the world, as we relate to ourselves, that's still there. That's one of the things that drives our addictions. Is we don't see ourselves in a healthy light, and so we become very situationally oriented. That's where that compulsions come from. That's where the impulsions come from. All that I need, I want more. Not this, but that. If only I could have a better situation, then I would be okay. Right? That's like our motto. Now just think about that for a minute. We're talking about a lifetime up to this point, our entire life. That's been our perspective. If I could just have something external be different, better, bigger, smaller, longer, shorter, whatever. The point is it's external, something that we can't control. So if only that would change, then I would be okay. And of course, we use people in our lives, our families, God bless them, every addict has to have a good codependent, and they'll, it's like we were kind of joking about it yesterday, but, if our families were as irresponsible as we were, or maybe as self-centered as we were, we wouldn't have lasted very long. And so it's not unusual for, especially in the early recovery stages, for everyone to have some resistance. And so what it gets down to, and this is what the solution is really grasping, embracing the reality that we have been sick for a while. We are, quote, there's a, in It's a Wonderful Life, he's sitting at the table with his dad before his dad passes away, and they're talking about the old man, and he's just a geezer, and the dad says he's sick in his mind, and he's sick in his soul. And I'm not implying that we're sick like, what's the character's name? The Barrymore character, in It's a Wonderful Life?
Mr. Potter.
Yeah, Mr. Potter, right. We have so much junk we're just walking around with. And of course, in early recovery, as soon as we get sober, we feel better, and then we want to just get back to it. Okay, now I need to hurry up, and I got to do this and that. I want to do this. I want to put this in place. I want to put that in place. But that's what we've always done. And so what we do is we put our life back together, basically the exact same way we've always put our life back together, which works for a while. We can do okay for a while, but it always comes back around because the one thing we didn't change was ourself. We didn't become different. We just made a different situation for ourselves. We get a different car and a different girlfriend and a different apartment and a different this and a different, did I say job? Different job. Different externals. And we never make or become different internally. And so just keep that in mind. We all start the recovery process with this thinking. Well, it's cool. We're gonna help them. Our families want to help us. Well, okay, we're gonna pay off some of those bills. We're gonna lighten their load. We're gonna make life a little bit easier, so that then the thinking. It's easy for families to think, well, If we can set them up in a way they don't have stress, then they won't ever drink or use again, or whatever, self-destruct, whatever that involves. And then our families do it, and we can do it for a while, but it negates alcoholism. It negates addiction for, say, a rational, normal brain, and I don't know anybody who actually has one, but I hear they're out there. We can get really close to it in recovery. We don't respond to that in a healthy way. What the addict said, you were, when we were watching that video a few weeks ago, you were thinking that line right before he said it. What an alcoholic is really thinking with a gun to his head isn't, oh, I better not take that drink or he'll shoot me. He's thinking, I wonder if he's even got bullets in that gun. Or I wonder if I can get the drink in me before I die. That's classic alcoholic thinking. And so when we get to a pretty good place in life, and we can do it, we're really good rebounders. And then, okay, finally, all right, I got my new place, I got a job I like, da-da-da. And what we think is cool, now I don't have to do anything else. And so we start moving back into the old way of thinking, the old way of behaving. And that's why it's so important for us to recognize our resistance in the process. Kind of getting ahead of myself, but like over here, why in the world do we resist something that we say we want so badly? And what it really comes down to is just our lack of understanding of the depth of what we're dealing with. So I'm going to come back to my 3 points. Newly sober alcoholic and addicts will always resist change. It's not the resistance that kills us. It's not becoming aware of it and trying to overcome it is what will kill us. But this is a primary reason why. This is why, before you beat yourself up, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. We're having to overcome a lifetime of entrenched ways of thinking, an entrenched self-image, entrenched family dynamics, entrenched undealt with pain that we don't even recognize as traumatic pain. And a lifetime of entrenched responses to all of those things. Okay, so it's not just because we haven't drank today doesn't mean we can expect much change. It's a great start, but that's what it is. It's a start. Getting sober, I say this all the time, sobriety is not the goal. Sobriety is what puts us in a position to now chase the goal. We can't have the goal, but the goal is transformation. We have to become a transformed person, and you're not that far from it. The recovery process, what it really does is it develops in us the person you're supposed to be. Think about all those good qualities and characteristics that everybody in this room has. But where do they go when we start getting into self, we start self-destructing, we start getting, I need this, I need that, I need this situation to be different, I wish this situation was different. Where's all that good stuff go? We don't know how to live in that person. We only know how to perform in that person. That's a good way to think of it. That's how I think of my experience. In fact, I had people in my life, this is probably high school period, a little bit after, where I would have friends and they would tell me, and I didn't ever take any drama classes, I had no interest in acting, and they would call me an actor. And of course now I realize what they were saying. But what do you mean I'm an actor? They say, yeah, you're a really good actor. But nobody would ever explain it. Well, obviously these were people who were more grounded than I was, and they recognized, they'd spent some time with me and they'd seen me in different situations, and they could see me perform well in this particular situation and then give a completely different performance in this other situation, kind of like we were even touching on that yesterday. We don't know who we really are, so what addicts are masters of is becoming what we need to be for any given situation. And that's a huge area of resistance in early recovery, because we tend to treat early recovery just like we treat everything else. It's like, okay, you're starting some new classes, you want to, or whatever, you're starting a new job or some new experience or a new church group, and we go along to get along, and we want everybody to validate us, to like us, and so we literally put on that show. But then, even though we don't recognize it, we don't intend it, we don't even know we're doing it. It's entrenched. It's that survival mode that you guys have heard so much about. Imagine this. What if you could be that person 80% of the time? Not just 20% of the time. What if you could be that person 80% of the time? We have it backwards. We want to be that person. It's already in there, but we don't know how to sustain that because we've got all this emotional junk. We've got all this defective thinking and a lifetime of entrenched ideas. So it takes time. It takes a process. Families can also resist change for all the same reasons. And then of course, it's family groups, so we tend to touch on the dynamic of how addiction and alcoholism has impacted the family. It's easy to think, you guys heard that term, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about the identified patient, right? And so it's easy when, I like to think of it like this. It's like while we're out there running around, not just chasing our drug of choice, but just chasing our own chaos, right? We're creating messes here, we're creating messes there. It doesn't even have to be during periods of using, and that's important to understand. We don't have a drinking problem. We drink as a result of all this other stuff. And if you've got the addict gene, well, then it's on. All you've done is just fire that thing up in your brain, and then you're going to not be able to stop drinking. So if we could, well, let me finish that one thought. So while we're out running around and we're chasing this chaos, and oh my gosh, I need this thing to happen, and oh my God, these people are being mean to me, and oh, there's this injustice over here, and our families are chasing us around. We literally become their drug of choice. And so now, even though everybody wants the same thing, oh my gosh, if we just didn't have to chase little Johnny around all the time, I'm tired of cleaning up your messes, I'm ready for you to grow up, all this stuff. But then when it starts to happen, it can disrupt that whole dynamic. Everyone kind of chose their role. And speaking of role, I think we may do this next Thursday, the actual dysfunctional family dynamic, where everyone takes on a role without even realizing it. And again, it's all apart from drinking and using. That's what's so entrenched in the relational dynamics. So now, we're sober, getting sober, we're seeking to make some changes, we're grasping this idea that I'm responsible for my own life, everything in it, and learning how to be that and become accountable. And we bring far less chaos to the table. Now we just don't have a lot of crises to solve, certainly not on a daily basis. There's probably some wreckage from the past, right? And I love that term. I didn't come up with that, but someone used to tell that to me, and I've always kept it. The wreckage of the past. And some of it can't stay in the past, right? Some of it we've brought with us. Some of it we got to deal with some stuff. And that's good to be able to have support. But it's important too, we deal with this a lot deeper when we get into codependency. Now the identified patient isn't much of a patient. And so family members can lose sight of, well, what am I supposed to be doing now? And can actually resist change. We can, as a family member of an addict, we can absolutely create a crisis when none exists. Just figuratively, there really is no crisis, but we can turn some things into some things. Jalen, I won't make you share it, but you were talking some stuff yesterday, and we all relate to that. It's like, mountains out of molehills. It's like, God, I'm just expressing what I'm feeling. I don't need you to do anything. You don't have to, oh my gosh, what? They're being mean to you? Oh my gosh, give me their number. I'm going to make a phone call. I got to do this. I got to do that. Families can do that too. And so, well, while we're on it, I'll kind of touch on that because I don't want to leave anybody hanging. As you have those little interactions in early recovery, it's important to recognize, just let everybody be who and what they are. We don't have to solve anybody's problems today. It's okay that the addict doesn't feel good today, or is anxious or irritable or restless or discontent or wants to run, or anything, whatever it is, wants to quit their job. We, as families, we just need to allow that, be supportive, listen, but we don't have to fix anything today. And a lot of that also can be manipulated. And that's what we were talking about the most yesterday, was how the addict manipulates that. We know if I plop down on the sofa in front of my mom and I don't say anything, I just sit there, with a negative body posture, my mom, she's going to go solve whatever problem I got. And we don't even have to have a conversation. Right? Oh my God, what's happening? Who hurt you? Why are you so upset? Where's your car? Who took your? Oh my God, that must be it. Somebody borrowed your car. I'm going to go get it back, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. And the problem with this is it keeps us both kind of stuck in the early stages of this change process. So keep that in mind, because that is what recovery is. It's just a process of change, and the definition of process is a series of actions. So we are literally in a series of actions to make or become different. That's all recovery is. And of course, we start just baby stepping it and developing that consistency, and that becomes the foundation. So in all of our interactions with our family, we should be seeking to keep it simple, yet do something different. If you're used to monopolizing the conversation with all the things that are wrong in your world, do something different. And that's hard. I was sharing some stories yesterday with my mom. It was hard in my early recovery experience to practice that, because her need to solve my emotional crisis was so overwhelming that she almost wouldn't allow me to have those conversations. No, I want to talk about you. Let's get about what's going on with you. How are you feeling? What do you need help with? And she would always turn that conversation right back around to me. And that's a mom thing, that's a mama bear thing. But it can also be a papa bear thing. Practice it. That's the point. The third point on the beginning over here, or on the far left-hand side, is everybody in the dynamic can easily minimize the seriousness of what we're talking about. And I kind of started with that. Well, what are we talking about? It's not just, it can't be as simple as, man, I hope they just quit drinking. Man, if they just quit drinking. By the time we end up drinking, everything else has been out of whack for a while. So by the time our families see the drinking or become aware of the drinking, that's like the end game. So we're discounting the seriousness of what we're really dealing with by just wishing, well, we just need to not drink. We're going to empty out all the liquor cabinets. We're never going to keep beer in the refrigerator anymore. And we'll go through all these measures externally so that we believe we're helping them to not drink. But in reality, if we can really buckle down and get serious about, learn the seriousness of what we're dealing with, and we make and become a different person, the real you, well, you shouldn't have any problem at all walking into 7-Eleven. We've been talking about this a lot lately. You see, when you walk into a convenience store now, at least the 7-Eleven down the street, 60% of your initial view in the store is booze. Right? Before I can even make it over to the fountain drinks and the donuts and the candy, it's just booze, alcohol. Then you get up to the front and there's more, oh, they got a special, hey. And then every once in a while, and I think it used to be illegal, I think it still is illegal, a clerk can't promote alcohol, but they will. Hey, we got this new, on this new display, we got this new fire hot, whatever, fireball, something or other. If we're gonna think in terms of recovery as just avoiding life, we're not going to make it. When we become a new, different person, remember the real you that cares about yourself, learn how to be that guy or that girl, then you can be surrounded by booze and it's not going to impact you because you know who you are. But right now, certainly in early recovery and up to this point, that was our relief, right? So relief from what? And that's a whole other group topic. But alcohol was the relief from. So this process of change is about dealing with the from. What do we need relief from? Our inability to handle life's difficulties, our own self-centeredness, undealt with pain, all this stuff I was talking about. So, and this isn't by any means an exhaustive list, and you certainly don't have to walk out of this room tonight and go, oh my God, I've got to figure every single one of these out. Just in general, just to kind of, illustrate in a general sense, what are the requirements of change? What will that look like? These are all the things that come out in working through a process of change. And it's also important to say you can't pick one and then tackle it. Okay, well, I'm going to work on my willingness to change today. You're either willing or you're not willing. You're either willing or you're resisting. The important thing is to know which one you are that day and then change it. Right? If you're resisting today, you need to know what resistance looks like in you. What do you look like when you're resisting change? And that's actually going to come out. I got a cheat sheet for you on the board. These are pretty general recovery requirements. We got to be willing to slow down. Can't learn anything if we're going 150 miles an hour. We've got to be teachable. We've got to follow rules and suggestions. We've got to delay gratification. You see, these first four are already the opposite of how we've been living. We've got to sacrifice our emotional comfort at times, accept responsibilities for ourselves. That doesn't mean you can't ever need help. Become accountable. Build a foundation of honesty and consistency. I think that's the most important one right there, consistency. A willingness to change. To be of service, to gain a new outlook, to take control of one's behavior, allow time for thinking to change, allow time for your thinking to change, allow time for your brain to heal, allow time to learn and practice new, what you're learning. The only thing on that board that we can control is our own behavior. And that's the one thing we have. Well, I mean, we can take hold of our own behavior when we're seeking something. But other than that, we get more focused on everybody else's behavior. If only my ex-wife would get off my back, then I could feel okay. If only this other thing, if only that thing, if only, the if onlys. AA came up with that, or pointed it out. We're stuck in the if-onlys. People, places, things, and situations. So, okay, now here's the good part. This is the definition of resistance. The definition of resistance, and there was three. A refusal to accept or comply, an attempt to prevent something by action, and an ability to not be affected by something, especially adversely. And that was so powerful, I threw in the definition of adversely. Adversely is contrary to one's interests or being opposed to something. Well, now go back to that period where you recognize you were sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know what to do. This sucks. This isn't where I thought I was going to be. I was supposed to be whatever by now. I always do this. I keep self-destructing. Just that place of such lowliness, darkness. And all we wanted was a different life. But here comes resistance. we reach out, we ask for help, we say, hey, I need help. And probably for the first time in our lives, in that very beginning, we actually surrender to it. We actually ask for help, and then whatever they say, we just accept it. Right? I know I did. I can still remember my other brother and my mom literally dragging me into the back of his Tahoe because I couldn't move. And whatever they were going to do, I was just going to let it happen. I was done. My way wasn't working. But just like everybody else, as soon as we get through that initial pain and we start to feel better, we start thinking again and start going, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe, just maybe. And so that's why, I mean, think of the contradiction of that. We can go from wanting something so badly, but then as we begin to get it, we resist it. Oh, I shouldn't have to do all that stuff, and that really doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think that applies, and I am honest with myself, and we want to debate everything, we want to analyze everything, we want to intellectualize everything. That's what resistance looks like. So I broke them down as examples. Those three definitions of resistance. This is when our refusal to accept or comply, this is what this looks like in early recovery. This is what's happening when we're picking and choosing all the parts of recovery principles that seem relevant to us, and we reject all the others. An example is, I spent a little time in rehab before, and I've already read the AA Big Book. I don't think I should have to read that again. Just the slightest little deviation from whatever that recovery suggestion is, we go, that doesn't really apply to me. Or I never saw my best friend get run over by a train, so I don't really have any trauma. There's nothing there to look at, nothing to see here. And we're resisting even looking at ourselves. We're resisting doing much different at all. I mean, in a worst case scenario. But what we're also picking and choosing is all these recovery requirements. I don't think I should have to slow down too much. I've been slowing down enough. Our thinking starts coming back. And remember, we don't have a drinking problem, we have a thinking problem. It's our thinking, kind of in a nutshell. Obviously, there's more factors involved, but what it really comes down to is it's our own thinking that got us here. We don't have a long history of, great decision making, wise judgment. Although, and that's kind of the irony of addiction is most, and there've been a lot of research on this over the years, way in the higher percentile of IQ. Right? In any kind of recovery group, you see the creative people and the brainiacs and the computer IT, experts and musicians and just high IQ stuff. And yet, when you look at our lives, it's like, so what it is it's a life of resistance. Think about that. The more you really grasp the seriousness of what we're actually dealing with, the easier the process of change becomes. And I did the same thing. I do what we all do. I was at that. By the time I got sober, I was 38. I finished all of my formal education. I had owned businesses. I had a home. I had children. I had some things. But that's all they were. And so in my early recovery experience, it was very easy for me to say, I'm just not like you people. I've never been homeless, and I've never been this and that, until I started getting honest with myself. It's not that I've never been homeless because my behavior shouldn't have led me to homelessness. I was never homeless simply because my family just wouldn't allow it. Right? Somebody always had a bed for me to stay on. Somebody was always willing to step up and buy diapers. Somebody was always willing to, make a house payment or 8. Somebody was always willing to make my car payment or whatever. I wasn't living my life My family was funding my life. I've been sick for a very long time. But that doesn't sound good in recovery, right? We want to go, I've got this, I'm good. I'm not like you people. That part I just wrote, the only people that don't make it are the ones who cannot get honest with themselves. They are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Now really think about that for a minute, because we all think we're honest with ourselves. We don't even have a clue. I think I'm a pretty honest person. The thing is we're lying to ourselves every day. And it can be a positive thing, it can be a negative thing. Either way, it's not reality. We're not losers, and yet we tell ourselves that all the time. Man, I'm never going to amount to anything. I always blow it. I keep messing things up. I don't deserve any help. And then the shameless part. I don't need any help. I got this. I can go it alone. My only problem is you. I just need you to get off my back, and then my life will be better. And a lot of times it's, if you would just pay my next 6 months of rent, then I could really be good. I could really fly. That was one I would use a lot. If you could just take care of all my student debt, then I wouldn't have so much stress. And I think I could really take it from here. Think about that thinking. Our whole life, we're always trying to position ourselves into a place where we can finally just have control of our life. Even though there's no evidence that we know what to do with all that control. That's not how it works. We've got to surrender our way into change. And so that's what we're resisting so much. We're still thinking, we're still cherry picking. That's what that is. So we want to pick and choose parts that seem relevant. We'll go, well, I delay gratification all the time, so that doesn't apply. And I have been slowing down, and I'm very teachable. And, of course, none of it's true. We haven't even begun to touch on those things yet. I'm talking about an early recovery. Now, here's the good news. As you really come face to face with your own resistance, just feel it. Just own it. And know that you don't have to do anything about it, but stay in the process. Just stay in the process of change. Just keep coming back. That silly little saying, the only people that don't get it are the ones who quit it. Stay in the process. I like there's another line in that same chapter where he talks about, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it always materializes for those who work for it. Of course we're all different. So that's the key, is just don't ever quit. Meaning, the days that you don't want to get up and make your bed anyway, and then go back to bed on top of it. Do something different. And I get that. Some days you're just not going to get out of bed. That's fine, but do something different. You're not hungry for breakfast, that's fine. So help somebody else eat breakfast. Make their breakfast for them. These little bitty micro decisions that we make throughout the day is what's changing the pathways in your brain. So that's why the only way we don't get it is if we quit it. And that's why this one is the most critical. Allowing time for the brain to heal. AA would say, don't leave 5 minutes before your miracle happens, right? Everybody's heard that. Well, and it's important to affirm there is a miracle coming. I mean, you're already living it, right? When was the last time you did? What was the longest period you ever went without drinking or using? Sometimes I hear people say they don't even remember. But for any of us, whatever that period is, it's huge that you're now at whatever point you're at. When was the last time you were that? So let's start with that, because that's a big thing. And I think I don't know if it just applies to men, maybe you can share on this, but I know one of the things that I used to reject that. That was one of the things I would resist, because I would say, I don't see what the big deal is. I'm just now doing what I should have been doing anyway. It was my way of, well, now that I'm haven't drank for whatever 4 months at that point, and I'm actually spending time with my kids. Well, I was supposed to be doing that all along, so since now that I am doing that, it shouldn't be a big deal.
What shouldn't be a big deal?
That I'm now living up to some responsibility. I think men think that for sure. Do you, when people are like praising you or encouraging you, supporting you, hey, it's so awesome that you're doing good, you're doing this, you're doing that, do you think about yourself, well, I don't see what the big deal is, I'm supposed to be doing this all the time?
Yeah, kind of, but I also feel a little bit of shame at the same time because of that, Like, you should have been doing that the whole time. So I feel like that is kind of shame-based thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a lie. Even though you feel that and we think that, that's one of those points of change. You practice just hearing it or receiving it from the other person, but also catching it in yourself when you are thinking that. Bring in the evidence. Who's to say? So I'm rejecting the significance of me doing well because I should have been doing it well all along. Well, where's the evidence that I've ever had the capacity to do well all along? Well, because my friends never drank, or because, what are we measuring that against? And when you start bringing in reality, and that's the thing, it's okay that I just didn't know how to live. It's nobody's fault. It's God knows people tried to teach me how to live. I rejected it. I want to do things my way. I'm going to figure this out. I think about my experience just growing up, and God put some amazing people in my life. My mom was a superwoman, like most of the mama bears that we work with, and she's always given me guidance and advice. And what am I doing? I'm always rejecting it. I don't want to do it for whatever reason, because of the family dynamic. I got to figure it out or it won't have value. That's shame-based. It has to be my idea, or I'll feel bad about it. Well, that's the kind of thinking we're talking about. It doesn't even make any sense. If I could give you information and you took it that would make your life work smoother, that sounds like a really good idea. But for the alcoholic brain, it's just not that simple. Oh, no. I've got to be able to figure it out because I'm not even sure you know what you're talking about, even though usually we get good advice from people who are clearly living different lives than we are, but we think we're different. We think we're unique. I've got to figure it out. I've shared a lot of those stories with you guys. Just idiotic is what it is. That's the way I see it. But it's not really. We're dealing, this thinking comes about from survival mode. At a young age, our self-image begins to change. And so that's always helped me. And it's not a get off the hook free card to yourself. It's just reality. And that is it's okay that I didn't know how to live. It didn't mean people didn't try to teach me. But I've been resistant to change for a very long time. And it's not an either or thing. And now I have an opportunity to learn how. Well, that changes everything, right? There's no shame there. There's nothing to prove there. There's nothing to feel bad about. Still probably have some junk we got to deal with and maybe clean up from the past. But what if you could really just allow yourself to begin again? The past is the past. There's some responsibilities we need to deal with. There's definitely some pain we need to deal with. But what if you could literally just let it be the past? Your past life was that. Man, I had some great experiences. Golly, I had some really bad ones too. Had some mediocre ones. You just had life. That's all. Only now, if we're willing to learn how to handle life, like the big book, the promises in the big book, we will come to know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. The alcoholic brain thinks is seeking a life where there are no problems. If only I could just have the right situation where there are no problems. And we resist that because we don't know how to handle problems. So imagine if we could just learn, if we were willing to learn, and then willing to practice and willing to fail and keep going and keep moving forward, well, we can have what the Bible says we can have what AA Big Book says we can have a new life, but we can't ever stop the process of change. And believe it or not, I hear it's a rumor, but I hear that's actually how normal people live. I don't know what it is. It just comes naturally for some people, right? And we've all been around them. They never seem to have the crises that I have, and just they handle their emotions well, and they're always in a good mood. And not that that's any kind of measuring, but they're in a good mood because of the decisions that they're making. Their self-esteem is at least higher than average because they make right choices about themselves in their life. And they're probably sacrificing a lot of themselves. They're being of service. They're willing to delay gratification for something more important. We're always looking for what's easiest. Well, this new life is going to seek what's most important, regardless of how it feels, right? We're so feelings driven, and I know, you guys, I beat you all over the head with that stuff. I won't get too deep into that, but that's really what it comes down to. Learning how to do the next right thing, regardless of how it feels. And that's tough because so much of our resistance stems from the emotional aspect about whatever we're dealing with in that moment. Okay, so the second one, resistance is an attempt to prevent something by action. This is, I've seen it. I've got a couple of stories where, it's sad. I was I was telling you this the other day. I'm actually, maybe y'all heard it, but I'll say it. When I first went to rehab, I had a roommate that was packing his bags every day. You talk about a crash course in, Miles, do you really want this thing? Because he would get in my head. He would come in there and he'd slam the door and all this is bull crap, and you know how we do. And he'd be packing his bag. I'm getting out of here, and then of course he starts gossiping about everybody else, and I want to get on that bandwagon. And finally, I became really grateful for. He never did leave. He was just chaotic. He comes to mind when I think about this. Is we make a blatant attempt to prevent change, even though we say we want it so badly. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. We're talking about making your words have meaning to yourself. Forget about, the promises and the hopes and the dreams of our families. We said it. We said we wanted help. We said we want a new way of life. And the way you prove that to yourself, and because that's all you got to do is prove it to yourself, is when you're in the ditches, or you're in those crunch periods throughout your day where you just want to give up, oh, this is too hard, blah, 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 you stick it out. You hang in there. That's why we get all these acronyms, HALT. You're probably very irritable because you're hungry, or you're lonely, or you're tired, you're not sleeping right. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Keep it simple. Ask for help. Get your butt to group. Go to a meeting. Be of service. All these things, they're not just cliches. These are the things that it's your ammunition. And so at any point in your process of change, and you're going to have plenty, you just reach in and you put that round in the chamber and you follow that. You know what? I haven't eaten in 12 hours. I just need to go eat. Forget about this thing over here, my injustice, right? My injustice of the day. This isn't fair. This is not working out for me. But here's what it looks like when we're kind of living up to the second definition of resistance. Attempting to prevent something by action. We're complaining a lot, even if it's just in our mind. we lived that double life, so we might be presenting, oh, I'm doing great, blah, blah, but in our mind, we're just spinning, oh, this is bull crap, and I can't stand this, and I can't wait for so-and-so to fail. Pushing the envelope, that's a big one. Debating, ignoring, lying, gossiping. We create our own chaos to justify why we're resisting. Right? But so think about this. Think about your process of change as a personal responsibility. We actually have a responsibility to make change. Because you said you wanted it. You said you wanted change. So that means the next step is well, now I have to be willing to do those things that will bring change. And it's very easy to fight against it. And it's hard. Once you get like in the middle of a recovery environment, it's hard not to just get completely consumed with new ways of thinking, new ideas, a new self-image, all this stuff. It takes a lot of like being aware of your level of resistance. And I've seen it. I'll give you one example that we had like in real life, and this was probably 10 years ago. And we had this lady, and she came and spent an entire year and was, I mean, you have to fight. You have to, like, every day you got to wake up and tell yourself, I'm not accepting anything today. Anyway, it worked out good. She goes home, she gets high, she gets arrested, she got sent to a court-ordered place and called her mom and said, please let me go back to Justin's Lighthouse. And so she came back and she did another year, only this time she wasn't so resistant. And it's somebody we talk to all the time. She's like 8 years sober now, just kicking butt. She just got married, life, blah, blah, blah. That's how serious this resistance is. I mean, it's not that hard. I think we can make it hard, because all of a sudden we're getting bombarded with new ways of thinking. Some things we've never even heard of before. This idea that I've got to get honest with myself when I already think I am honest with myself. We don't, it's like, this is like a normal, we'll say this is kind of a normal line here. And as we look at ourselves, we may see a little bit under that. Well, I'm being honest. Yeah, I have my days or whatever, where we think we're really disclosing some deep honesty. Where we got to be willing to go is way down here. This is really how I see myself. These are really the things that I do. I really am a manipulator. I really do take advantage of my mom. I really do blah, blah, blah. I'm self-centered. Owning these things, not from a position of shame, but remember, we just didn't know how. We just didn't know how. That's not a bad thing. And yet we're still here. So now we can learn, but we got to drop our resistance. We won't get there. The third definition is the ability to not be affected by something. And that's crazy. All these are under resistance definition. And it's kind of the same explanation. To be in an environment and possess an ability to not be affected by it, what's really happening in that kind of a situation? It'd be like hanging out. You take, you always use plumber, and not because we've had plumbing issues all week, but it's heavy on my brain. Oh, we got a whole other one going on today.
Oh no!
So I'm gonna finish it after this. If you want to be a plumber, then it would stand to reason that we might maybe call around and maybe eventually enroll in a plumbing school and go take some classes and pay attention to what they're teaching and then practice what they're teaching. And it stands to reason I'll probably end up being a plumber. Right? That seems pretty reasonable. But this is where the disconnect is about addiction and recovery. We want this new life. Whatever, we're not sure what it looks like. We just know we don't want the life we've been living. So the remedy is I just need to get around other people who've been where I've been and can kind of lead me through and teach me and give me space and time to practice all this new stuff and adopt a new way of living and start applying that, and it stands to reason I will get my new life because everybody else has theirs. And yet, we think it doesn't apply. Well, I don't think that, so we resist. It'd be like sitting in plumbing class and going, well, I'm probably never going to have an opportunity to install a 40-gallon hot water tank, so I'm just going to tune this week out. That's what that looks like. And what's happening is we need to go back to step one. You need to really dig deep into just how seriousness our condition is. People who cannot get brutally honest with themselves about themselves will always just minimize their way through, and we don't get change. And that's why it's important to, I always use a lot of examples because something is going to click. You may not see all of them today, but something, will make sense to you. And on that, by the way, here's another guidance tip. Whenever you're looking at the board, our tendency is to try to figure out which one applies. That's the cherry picking, by the way. We're picking and choosing what we think is relevant. And so, I kind of recognize that. Oh, but that's my mom, and that's my ex, and that's my blah, blah, blah. We want to kind of piece it out. It's the wrong question. The question is not which one of these apply. The question you need to start asking yourself is, how do they all apply? Because everything on the board ever is the addict brain. It is us. It is our condition. And so as we make or become different and we move forward in this process, we've got to be willing to take it all in. And that's what surrender looks like. And remember the definition of surrender. We just did a whole thing on this the other day. To give yourself over to someone or something. I just don't know about this surrender thing. We've already been doing it. We've spent our life surrendering to our own resistance, surrendering to the lies that we tell ourselves, surrendering to other people's approval or not, other people's opinions, surrendering to people, places, things, and situations. We already know how to surrender. We just have to really grasp the depth of reality, and that is I've been sick in my mind for a long time. I don't see the world in a right, healthy way. I don't see me in a right, healthy way. So I don't really have much to bring to the table. That's a good place to be, because that's where you really start getting teachable. Right? If I don't bring much to the table, and I'm not talking about character-wise, I'm talking about living life in healthy, balanced ways yet. But we've got all that stuff just waiting to all come together and fall into place and be that amazing person that your families already know you are. They're just waiting for us to become that person. These are traits. Pay attention to your thinking. Any of these that stand out to you now that you recognize. Seeing recovery as a series of tasks. Meaning, what you get into is like, oh God, okay, I'm supposed to go to this meeting now, and oh, okay, I guess, every day at noon I got to read that one book, and you start thinking of, okay, there's some recovery responsibility, but I see it as a task, and it's more like a chore, and it completely misses the point. Right? We have to start seeing recovery as something to become. We're becoming an entirely new person. Or like we've been talking about, you're becoming the real you. But we've never really tapped that person yet. And so we tend to do a minimal amount to get by. Meaning, if it's an approval or validation issue, we'll go ahead and knock it out. I got to meet with my friends on Friday, and they're going to ask me if I went to that meeting, so I better go to that meeting tonight so I can say, we're way overthinking stuff. We're not thinking of, man, I got to do everything I need to do because I want this new life. We're not equating it to what we said we wanted. We're still cherry picking, and we're still trying to present it in a way that other people will be satisfied. Really pay attention to that, because that's resistance. We tend to analyze and intellectualize everything. Of course, we do entire lectures on these too, but here's how you know the difference between an intellectual pursuit and an intellectualization. And in a true intellectual pursuit, you will arrive at a conclusion. Intellectualizing, which is a defect, is us just seeking reason. We're looking for causes. Basically, it's been said that intellectualizing is a flight into reason. It helps us to avoid the emotional aspect associated with an experience. Such as, our house got knocked over from a tornado last week, but everybody's fine. Nobody got hurt. It's cool. And we completely negate the fact that I just lost everything I've ever had. All my trophies are gone. All the artwork is gone. My dog is gone. All this stuff, and as a family, and everyone else's pain, and it's such a major loss. That's what intellectualizing looks like. Now, pay attention to how you do it with yourself about the past. That's a big, I won't get too deep into it, but while we're on it. Because we use intellectualizing as a way to cope with pain. Yeah, I know, but he talks to everybody like that. Never mind that, when my grandfather said, man, you sure are getting fatter, as a 12-year-old boy, how painful, and, talk about feeling rejected. Never mind that, I just explain it away by going, that's just the way he was. And what's happening, I'll save the rest of this for trauma group, but what's happening is we're just rationalizing the other person's behavior while ignoring our emotional response to it. And that's what healing is. Healing trauma is about letting everybody else be who they are. It's not about other people's behavior. It's about what's going on within me. I felt shame. I felt disgusting. I felt less than. I felt, like a loser. And then you can get somewhere. And so that's why it may sound like a good thing, but it's not. Intellectualizing will keep you sick. It keeps you looking for reasons. We will debate and question. We will size up people and parameters. That's human nature. We tend to do that in any kind of group environment. Looking to do the minimal amount, but here's the funny thing about that is remember, our thinking is very distorted. So what would we know about what the minimal amount is supposed to look like? We don't. It's an emotional decision that we're making. We make, I think I'll do this because, I watch Miles and he gets really upset when people throw their cigarettes on the grass, so I'll just never throw my grass where Miles walks, or my cigarette. It's so scattered, and yet that's like an actual thought that someone might have. And it's still trying to please me. Still trying to please another person versus what's the right thing for me to do? Because I said that I wanted to change, so here's a good opportunity for me to change. And I'll wait for group and I'll tell you all my tobacco stories. They're not good. Number 7, this is probably one you recognize the most. We pick out the things of interest, these things over here that seem interesting to us, while figuring out the rest of our own plan. We all do this. I've done it. Man, we're looking for that easier, softer way. I'm cool with reading the big book and all, and I'll go to some of those meetings, but I just don't see why making my bed is that big a deal. And I shouldn't have to do my laundry on a regular basis because it's just me, and it's not like I get dirty anyway. And we'll take whatever that recovery suggestion is, or even maybe a rule, and we will debate it, we will minimize it, we will push it away, while thinking, I'm going to really kind of put things together on my own. Now, here's the thing. You have an amazing quality that allows you to actually get away with that for a while. Right? That's how we've survived, by half measuring, cutting corners, getting A's when you didn't work as hard as the guy next to you. So much of this higher IQ stuff comes naturally for most of you. And so we've gotten away with it. We're not going to get away with it anymore. Half measures avail us nothing. Expecting quick fixes. This is a big one. I think it's easy for us to expect quick fixes, and it's easy for our families to maybe not expect, but wish, and that's okay. Oh gosh, if you just get fixed, and then we'll all be okay. This all comes down to, embrace is not even the right word. I mean, we need to immerse ourselves in the reality of just how deep our sickness runs. We are so sick in the way we put our thoughts together, distorted thinking. We're sick in the way we deal with it. We have mastered the art of nothing to see here, but in truth, there's a lot to see here. And this process of change is about uncovering that, but we have to drop our resistance. I'm gonna shoot straight over here because we're running out of time. I like this one here. I think that's really the top reason. I didn't put these in any kind of order, but this third one here on the why, and it's what I recognize too. I think a lot of people who don't really change their life, especially from addiction, never really understood it to be a life or death situation. And it's easy. I would still think that way. I was using at my brother's funeral, convincing myself that, it won't happen to me, even though it just happened to him, and I was using way more than he was. That's the denial. It won't happen to me. It's not that big a deal. No, we're dealing with life or death situation, and now with all the nastiness that's on the street, man, fentanyl, and they're working it into everything, and they're going to figure out a way to get it into alcohol too. So, but even if, forget about the drinking and using aspect of it. Remove drugs and alcohol from your life, and what do you see? Are you okay with that? We got to get to the point where we're not even okay with that. We don't know how to be sober. You remove from us what we've been using for relief, and anxiety shooting off the charts, restlessness, irritability, impulsivity, all of our compulsions come to a head. We need this, that, if only. We don't want to live like that. So, what was the word I said? Embrace? No,
Immerse.
Beyond embrace. Immerse. Immerse yourself in the reality of, and remember, we're not talking about shame. Not, golly, man, I really have been a loser. That's wrong thinking. That's a lie. We have an enormous amount of pain we've never dealt with. We've tried to put our own life together. I think this will be good, and I think this will be good. And we just don't know how. We didn't know how. We didn't do it well. So it's okay to be willing to learn now, which is what step one is all about. Step one is, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol. Okay, well, that was not a hard one. That our lives had become unmanageable. But like what we were talking about, I think even yesterday, what does that look like? What does unmanageability look like? And that's hard. The more you drop that resistance, the more you'll come to understand what our unmanageability looks like. We've been in it for so long, we don't recognize it. We think it's perfectly normal to drive around on, an empty tank of gas and just, hope. We think it's normal to put 99 cents of gas into a car. We think it's normal to, all these things that we just kind of take as, it's no big deal. It's not. It's not how healthy people live. We don't know. Okay, here's this little continuum. I'll leave it with this. You guys have already seen this, but I like these visuals. In order to change, this idea that, okay, my old life ends and now I'm beginning my new life. Wrong thinking. My old life ends and now I'm willing to be in a process of change and healing and practicing and resisting and pushing forward and learning some more and practicing some more, and then I will begin my new life. We want to go, yeah, I'm fine, I quit drinking, all's good, and we just want to get to our new life. And some of you may even have that experience in the past. That's what it looks like when we're like, okay, all right, fine. I just need to get a new job, get a new apartment, get a new house, get a new girlfriend, get a new this, we just want to put our life back together. And that's the measuring stick. If I could just afford to get my cell phone turned back on, then everything would be great. That's what I used to think that. Of course, I couldn't pull it off, so I would get my mom to get my cell phone turned back on. And then I would really think, okay, cool, I'm good. Zero change had occurred. I'm still the exact same person that I was here as I am here because we resist change. So this is where, this is the point where we lose that disconnect. You said you wanted new. Now you're in that process of change so that you can get new, and what you're doing is you're earning it, right? You're literally earning your new way of life, only you're not following your ideas. We follow a new course of action. One that put together from those that came before us. It almost sounds like I'm doing an AA speaker meeting, right? But that's really how it works. I know it sounds really corny, but that's really how we get it. So pay attention to your own resistance about your own process of change. It's very powerful. Okay, we're actually pretty much right on time, but if anybody just can't take it and you got to say something, share it. What really jumps out at you?
You know what I love about being here? Realizing I'm not the only one that thinks like this.
Right.
But I also hate that you read my mind at the same time. Sometimes I hate just how right you are.
Oh man, maybe I should get a booth at the fair.
They're quite expensive.
Yeah.
Still worth it.
They're expensive?
Yeah.
How much do you think I could charge?
Well,
A good amount.
We could do it together, and we'll only take addicts and alcoholics.
you can get a little spot, maybe a little corner in the Centennial Building.
That's cool. I've been in there a lot for like gun shows and stuff. But what you say is really important. When I finally realized that, it gave me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
Because I used to think, like you probably think, oh, I'm special. Nobody's gonna understand me.
Well, I
got
feel alone.
Oh.
I'm alone in the way that I think and feel and all that. But in the last couple weeks or so, I'm realizing more and more how similar I am to y'all, the women around me.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
That should be very encouraging because I think, just like this resistance that we're talking about, once you really understand that or you can recognize it, then it's like, well, shoot, if then the solution will fit all of us, whatever that is. The solution is the same for all of us, even though one person's had different life experiences. It's the same thing. The solution is the same, and that's a lot of what it looks like. We've got to be willing to live in these requirements. So now, and you were sharing some stuff the other day that was really powerful. Just taking advantage of that connection. We get those days and we just want to, it's just too hard. which is kind of funny to me. What are we actually saying when we think, oh, this is too hard? What exactly is happening? What, like getting 3 meals a day and having a roof over our head and not having to work right now? That's hard? What's hard about that? That's those crises that we make on our own. We create our own crises. It's a disconnect from reality, because you probably never had it, and I can tell you, not likely you're ever going to have in the future an opportunity to just take a little chunk out of your life and do nothing but immerse yourself in yourself and learn all these things, and not just learn them, but we've got to apply them and practice them, and you will resist them, and you will shoot yourself in the foot along the way from time to time, which doesn't have to mean drinking and using. But if you stay in it, it always comes full circle. And then, I joke with the guys all the time. Sometimes, man, I wish I could just go back to rehab for 30 days.
I life. Said that yesterday. I did. I was like, there was nothing to worry about. Like, I wanted to get out while I was in there.
Right.
But then I was driving around yesterday, and I was like, man, I wish I could go back because I had nothing to worry about.
Exactly. That's classic.
Yeah.
But when we're, it's like wherever we are, we always want to be somewhere else. Oh, I wish I was over there. And then we get over there. Well, I wish I was up here. And then we get there. Oh, I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. Or doing, I don't want this thing. I want this other thing. And that's the externals. And so this is the time where you get to recognize we've been chasing externals our whole life. What's going on with me that I have such a difficult time having this experience? Whatever this experience is for you at any given moment. And if you ask those kind of questions and give yourself an answer, an honest answer, you'll turn those I just want to run away to something else. You'll turn those into very cathartic experiences. Well, what's going on with me? And then we'll try to justify it. Well, somebody else. No. What's going on with me is I miss my family. Okay, that's cool. So miss them. Talk to them. What do you miss about them? What can you do different right now? And now all of a sudden you're applying a new way of thinking instead of, oh, I miss my family. I'm going to self-destruct if I don't. And we'll actually, you probably have, some of you guys probably recognize this, we can crisis build our way into a relapse and never even go and do that thing we said we had to have. Classic attitude. It's never about what we say it's about, even though in that moment we think it is. Our thinking is distorted. And so how cool is that? To be able to take just a little chunk out of your life and immerse yourself in yourself. And I mean, it's not supposed to be, peaches and cream and happy times every day. Hopefully not. That just means you're faking it. But you can have difficult days and talk about it. You can have regrets and bitterness and anger and whatever and talk about it and move through it. What we don't have to do ever again is we don't have to drink. We don't have to use. We have new solutions today, but we got to stay in it to learn them.